This number's manageable.
Yeah. This is the number that came. This is the number that came from the Department of Education, as well as it came from Iowa Association of School Boards, and they came separately, and they were the same number. So I'm assuming it was accurate. I'm looking at the board.
It might be a little bigger, Doug, not 130, when they started adding some of the, this might, yeah, some of the categorical stuff. This number might only be the state aid without the phase 1 and 2 and some of that.
But it's not
So
that
that's
close.
still up in the air. So.
Okay. Just a couple comments on the non-public school camper thing. I think as a minimum, I think we need to do an exit interview, but I realize most of the time that's too late. I think at times we need to informally contact those families, and I don't know how the best way to get you that information. Because I know in the past I've heard things around the community, and some of them have actually occurred and some of them haven't occurred. So, do you want to know about those things when you hear them, or? So,
Are you talking yet about the?
I'm talking about the camper thing.
Okay, where a family might base a decision based on something that's.
Yeah, that
that's happened, or-
family is considering doing the camper or whatever.
Yes. When we started to have conversations about whole grade sharing, a couple of three, well actually there were probably 4 or 5 families from Auburn contacted me right away and wanted to talk about leaving to go to Carroll. And we talked all through that time period, and we agreed that there was no reason for them to rush out because they could always leave. The time frame is pretty open when you reconfigure a school. And none of those families left. But they were very concerned about where everything was going to be and how this was going to work. But it was that kind of right away jump to a conclusion. And once we could talk about it, I could answer their questions for them. But I would like to know that, especially if you have a family that says anything to you about some concern that they have that might be a reason they were going to leave. Yes.
There are lots of reasons. Some you just have difficulty finding out. But I visited with a young man in our community whose children, well, I think he's got one child in that school system now, and that's where their children are going. I said, what are the chances of getting your kids in our school? And what haven't we done that we should have done to have them here? And his comment was, they're not in Kemper because I want them there. He said, that's my wife's decision, and it's not even her decision. It's her grandparents' decision. They're very religious. I said, hell, they're religious too. I didn't send any kids to Kemper. But anyway, you know, there are a lot of pressures there. He told me that from the time he graduated until his son got into Kemper, into that school system, he hadn't been back in one of their buildings. He had such a bad feeling about the school. But still, his children will go to school there because his wife's grandparents want them there. There's that kind of family pressure.
Yeah, there's other reasons, you know. I've heard reasons that my kids aren't testing well, and I think they should be testing better than they are, and I think maybe they can maybe get a better education. I've heard those things associated with some of the things we talked about earlier, the harassment and the bullying and those kind of things. But, you know, there's a number of different things people tell you and rumors you hear. So,
well, you know, I can speak from the other side of the plate because I was out there often recruiting those kids when I was with the camper system. And, you know, things we would do to, you know, try to encourage people to send their children to us. And we did a lot to celebrate our, you know, achievements. And, you know, that we had some naughty kids there too. You know, we just didn't, you know, bring that up. We might, you know, when we talked about the school, we would talk about, you know, the achievements the kids had made, you know, and just really dwell on the positive. And they get to hearing that stuff so often, they think that's all that happens there, you know, and it doesn't, you know, but I mean, you know, you just dwell on the positive. And, we need to be able to, maybe, I don't know whether there's a school, sell that more, so that when you walk into our school, we see those, positive things that are happening, whether it be, posted on the wall, or in a newsletter that goes out, but, I think it's more about celebrating the positive and making those announcements, than it ever was about, we do this better than them. We might say that, we had, 2 kids, that just got into Notre Dame, and that's, pretty prestigious, nobody, maybe nobody got in from East Sac County because nobody applied, but, but still, that, you put those things out, and yes, there are grandparents.
Shirley just mentioned it's a marketing thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yes, exactly what it is. And the thing is that we've never had any competition up here. And so, we really don't know how to market.
They have a person hired whose job it is to market their school.
We could market award-winning schools as long as we know every time there is a positive, something that's happened that we can exploit. And Barb sometimes doesn't feel very good about exploiting them, but that's my job. I can exploit it, So, there are things that you can do by putting it on your website, putting it in a newsletter, sending it out to the paper, taking a photo, anything like that.
See, they've got a definite advantage too, because they have a radio station and a daily newspaper. But we don't have either one. And, they just, if I were a non-Catholic family in the town of Carroll, I'd get a little put out about all the attention that Kemper gets in that newspaper, I think.
Part of that too, though, we're getting beyond the newspaper thing and it's all web-based. So we probably need all the new social marketing, the Facebook, MySpace, all that kind of good stuff along with our website. And then marketing our website so people can find it, especially the newcomers.
But you talk to the administrators and teachers at Carroll, and they'll tell you that the number of individuals from Kemper, or that used to be at Kemper, or now at Public, has changed considerably over the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And I had no idea it was that significant, but it is significant.
From Kemper to
From
Public.
Kemper to Public.
Kemper.
Send all our problems to the public.
The Kemper school used to be, 2 to 3 times size. Now it's just flippy-flop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just exploit the things out.
One last comment from me, Barb. On the last item on contacting neighboring districts, I see that in the letter that was sent out, we talked about things we had to offer the other districts, courses, and vocational, so on and so forth. I was under the impression last month when we talked that the letter was going to be more of a all-encompassing letter in that we were going to address any opportunities for sharing between the districts, whether it be academic, athletic, whatever. And I guess I haven't seen the letter, but it appears, according to this, we talked only about things that we had to offer their kids that come to our district.
I didn't understand it to be athletic. Okay, so that would be my misunderstanding, and certainly there can be follow-up related to that.
Well, I don't
But
know if we
did-
said athletic, but I thought we said that, we talked about all sharing opportunities.
I
Well,
did
don't
call
know.
every superintendent and talk to them, so I talked to every one of them before the letter went to them. And said, you're gonna get a letter, and what you're gonna see in the letter is about the kinds of things that we have to offer. Well, in those conversations, we talked, what came of the conversations by my personal contact was potential for sharing a Spanish teacher and the potential for sharing a special education teacher. So I think some of that happened, but it wasn't directly addressed in the letter, you're right. And we can follow up with something that would be more specific related to that then.
But there may be one of these school districts that may be looking for a sharing partner in the future, not just sending their kids to our school district
Okay.
to take classes. Am I wrong by, is that what we talked about last month or not?
That's what I thought the letter was going to be about, was opening up discussions for sharing with other districts, not just courses, but discussion with some of the others. There's some real hard feelings out there right now in some of those districts.
I did not understand that between the two boards that we were talking, I thought we were talking at the level of course.